Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're going to be talking about novels.
Ooh, fun.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about this one. We've got this presentation called The Novel as a Form of Writing, and it covers a lot, but I'm really interested in this focus on Asian American authors that has going on. So
I'm excited to hear about that.
Yeah, me too. So I think first we should just kind of like get on the same page with what exactly is a novel. I mean, we all know, but the presentation defines it as a long fictional story told in prose.
Okay, so simple enough.
Yeah, but what does that actually mean for us as
Right, as readers.
Readers, yeah. Why are we so captivated by novels?
Yeah, I think about that word long, and it suggests this journey, right?
Yeah.
A complex unfolding of events and characters.
Definitely.
And then fictional gives authors this freedom to create these brand new worlds.
Oh, I like that.
And explore these themes that might not be possible in real life. And then prose. That's like the everyday language we use, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it makes those stories relatable. It draws us in.
That's so true.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about it that way.
Yeah.
So the presentation actually takes us way back to the very early days of the novel.
Okay.
Way back to the 11th century.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So it mentions the tale of Genji from Japan.
Okay.
And then Don Quixote from Spain in 1605.
Okay. Wow.
It's kind of crazy to think about.
It's amazing how long this form of storytelling has been around.
Oh,
it's crazy.
And it's still going strong.
Exactly. What's interesting about The Tale of Genji is that it's considered one of the world's first novels.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's this intricate look into courtly life in ancient Japan, and its exploration of human relationships and emotions still resonates with readers even today.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really cool. It speaks to the power of storytelling.
Yeah.
How certain human experiences transcend time and cultural boundaries.
We're all connected through these stories.
Exactly.
So speaking of connecting through stories, how did the novel actually travel all the way over to America?
Right. Well, they came over with the colonial settlers.
Okay.
But early American novels often mirrored European traditions.
That makes sense.
Yeah. It wasn't until the 19th century that American novelists really started forging their own path.
Okay.
They started crafting stories that reflected distinctly American experiences.
I see. So kind of building upon that, the presentation points out how Asian American voices began emerging in the 20th century.
Right.
Adding another layer to this evolution of the American novel. Why was that such a significant shift?
So early American novels often just overlooked minority voices.
Right.
But the 20th century really marked a turning point.
Okay.
And Asian American authors began to claim their space in the literary world.
Yeah.
Sharing stories that explored themes of immigration, assimilation, the search for identity, all central to the Asian American experience.
Yeah, for sure.
A great example of this is The Joy Luck Club by Amy Tan.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of that one.
It delves into these complex relationships between Chinese immigrant mothers and their American-born daughters.
Interesting.
And it really resonated with so many readers because it tacked into these universal themes of family, culture, and belonging.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And the presentation specifically calls out Frank Chen and Maxine Hong Kingston as these pioneering figures in Asian American lit.
They're amazing.
What made their work so groundbreaking?
So Frank Chen was actually one of the first Asian American novelists to gain widespread recognition.
Wow.
His work often tackled themes of masculinity and identity.
Okay.
And he wasn't afraid to challenge stereotypes.
Yeah.
He really paved the way for other Asian American authors to explore those difficult topics.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then Maxine Hong Kingston.
Yeah.
She's known for blurring the lines between autobiography and fiction.
Interesting.
In her book, The Woman Warrior.
Okay.
She wove together personal narratives with Chinese folklore.
Wow.
To provide a unique and powerful window into the Asian American experience, particularly for women.
So these really personal stories.
Not very personal.
But also connected to these wider cultural
traditions and folklore.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's really powerful.
I love how novels can give us those glimpses into different cultures.
Absolutely.
Well, it's like we're transported into another world.
It's like stepping into someone else's shoes.
Exactly.
And seeing the world through their eyes.
And Asian American novels specifically often deal with navigating between cultures.
Right.
Like the push and pull of holding on to traditions while trying to assimilate into a new society.
Exactly. And it's a challenge, right? Feeling like you belong to two worlds.
Yeah.
but not fully fitting into either.
That's such a powerful concept, and I imagine it resonates with a lot of people.
I think it does. It speaks to the universality of literature.
Totally.
These stories might be rooted in specific cultural experiences, but they also tap into these broader human emotions and desires that we can all relate to.
That's so true. So the presentation also talks about the sheer variety of novels that are out there.
Right.
You know, you have realistic fiction, historical novels, fantasy, sci-fi.
Yeah, all sorts of genres.
It's really exciting to see Asian American authors are contributing to all these different genres.
It's amazing they're not just telling one kind of story.
Right.
Like we talked about before, Jamie Ford's Hotel on the Corner of Bitter and Sweet.
Yeah.
That's a historical novel, and it tells this really moving story about a Chinese-American boy and a Japanese-American girl finding friendship amidst the backdrop of World War II and Japanese internment.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really powerful.
So I'm always fascinated by how authors craft their stories. You know,
Yeah.
the presentation walks through that typical plot structure.
Right, like the exposition,
Yeah.
rising action, climax, falling action, resolution, the
Exactly.
classic structure.
But it also points out that Asian American novels often weave in these unique elements that add like another layer of complexity.
Absolutely.
What kind of things are we talking about here?
Well, think about those themes we've been discussing.
Yeah.
Immigration, assimilation, cultural identity.
Yeah.
They often play out through intergenerational conflicts within families.
Okay.
The clash between traditional values and modern life.
Right.
The characters' internal struggles to reconcile their dual identities.
Right.
It really adds this richness and depth to the storytelling.
I love how you describe it as like adding richness and depth.
Yeah.
It's like these novels are not just telling a story,
Right.
but they're exploring these like layered and nuanced aspects of the human experience.
Exactly. That's what makes them so captivating.
Yeah.
They draw you in with a compelling plot, but they also stay with you long after you've finished reading.
Right.
Because they've made you think about the world and your place in it in a new way.
That's such a good point. So I'm curious, what are some of the like universal themes that we see in novels? And then how do Asian American authors
Kind of approach those themes in their own unique ways.
So you see themes of love, loss, identity, family, ambition,
Yeah.
the struggle for power, the search for meaning in life.
It's all the big stuff.
It's the big stuff, right? These are things that resonate with readers across cultures and time periods.
For sure.
What's interesting is how Asian American authors explore these themes through the lens of their own cultural backgrounds and experiences. For instance, the concept of filial piety,
Right.
the duty and respect children owe their parents. That's a strong theme in many Asian cultures.
Right.
And you often see that reflected in Asian American novels.
Okay.
But it might be explored in a way that also acknowledges the tensions that can arise
Yeah.
when those traditional values clash with the individualistic nature of American society.
That's super interesting. It's like you're taking these universal themes, but adding.
Exactly, adding their own spin on it
Yeah.
based on their own unique experiences. That's fascinating. It sounds like these novels are not just telling stories, they're making us think about these big universal questions through a different cultural lens.
They are. And
Right.
that's what makes them so powerful and thought-provoking.
I completely agree.
And it's not just about the themes, right? It's also about the way those stories are told that make novels so captivating.
Yeah, for sure.
The presentation dives into narrative perspective,
Ooh, okay.
which is basically like whose voice is guiding us through the story.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that too when I was reading the presentation.
Yeah.
They talk about first-person narration, you know, where we're like right inside the character's head,
Yeah.
experiencing their thoughts and feelings firsthand.
That's exactly.
Like in The Woman Warrior.
Yes.
And then there's third-person limited,
Right.
where we follow one character closely, but it's not necessarily from their point of view,
Right.
like in The Sympathizer.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then there's some novels that like blend those different perspectives together.
Yeah, you get a mix, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes to show the contrast between cultures or generations.
Yeah, sure.
It's really interesting.
What I think is really cool about narrative perspective is how it like shapes our understanding of the story.
Oh,
You know,
absolutely.
like a first-person narrator
Yeah.
might be unreliable,
Right.
making us question their version of events.
Wait a minute.
And then with third-person limited,
Yeah.
we might only be getting like a partial view of the world.
Right, exactly. Limited by that character.
Yeah. And then when you have those like blended perspectives,
Yeah.
it's like a tapestry of voices.
It is. It's like this woven.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. It shows how like complex.
Human relationships. And,
Yeah.
how we all experience the world so differently.
Totally. You know what? Thinking about it, like that makes me want to go back and reread some of my favorite novels
Me too.
and like pay more attention to who's telling the story and how that's like
Yeah.
influencing what I'm reading.
It's like a whole new way to appreciate a book.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that.
So the presentation also talks about how novels can be like mirrors to society,
Right.
reflecting the social and political issues of the time.
Right. They're not just these isolated stories.
Exactly.
They're connected to the real world.
Yeah. They highlight a couple of examples,
Yeah.
like Charles Yu's Interior Chinatown,
Oh, yeah.
which like satirizes stereotypes about Asian Americans in Hollywood.
Right.
And then there's Pachinko by Min-jin Lee,
Mm-hmm.
which follows a Korean family over like generations.
Wow.
Dealing with displacement and discrimination.
Such an important story.
Yeah, those are both great examples of how novels can like spark these important conversations.
They do. They really do.
You know, expose injustices, challenge our assumptions.
Make us think about things differently.
Exactly.
Interior Chinatown is so clever.
Yeah.
The way it uses satire
Mm-hmm.
to expose those harmful stereotypes.
Yeah. And then Pachinko reminds us of the long history of migration and the resilience of communities facing incredible hardship.
It's amazing how a novel can be both entertaining and thought-provoking at the same time.
I know.
Like it can transport us to another world,
Yeah.
but also make us think critically about our own.
So true.
Yeah.
The presentation kind of takes us on this historical journey.
Okay.
Starting in the 19th century,
Right.
when like Asian Americans were largely absent from mainstream American literature.
Right.
And they talk about the impact of laws like the Chinese Exclusion Act,
Yeah.
which obviously restricted immigration, but also...
It silenced those voices.
Exactly.
It's a stark reminder of how social and political forces can shape what stories get told
Yeah.
and whose voices get heard.
And it's not just about what gets published, but
Yeah.
also like who's reading those stories
I don't-
and how those stories are received.
It's all connected.
Yeah, for sure. So the exclusion of Asian Americans from literature during this period
Yeah.
reflects that broader societal prejudice
Ab-
and discrimination that they faced.
And it's not until the 20th century,
Okay.
with the rise of movements like the Harlem Renaissance and the Civil Rights Movement,
Yeah.
that you see this broader push for inclusion and representation in the arts.
So how did those like cultural shifts and movements
Yeah.
influence Asian American narratives in the 20th century?
It's interesting because different literary movements
Yeah.
provided new avenues for Asian American writers to explore these themes
Okay.
of identity, belonging, and resistance.
Okay.
So like modernist novels, for example,
Mhm.
which emerged in the early 20th century,
Okay.
often emphasize fragmented identities
Okay.
and the psychological impact of war and societal upheaval.
Right.
This style really lent itself well to like exploring the experiences of Japanese Americans during World War II,
Yeah.
as we see in John Okada's No No Boy.
So like modernism kind of gave authors this way to delve into the inner turmoil and like complexities of identity in this time of like great social change.
He gave him the language for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you have postmodern novels,
Right.
which came a little bit later.
Yeah, which gained prominence in the latter half of the 20th century. Okay. And these novels often challenge those traditional storytelling conventions.
Okay.
They blur genres, they incorporate multiple perspectives,
Mm-hmm.
and they question established power structures.
Right.
It's like a whole new way of thinking about storytelling.
And it seems fitting given the ongoing fight for equality and representation.
It does right. It's like pushing boundaries,
Yeah.
challenging the status quo.
Exactly.
A great example of this is Interior Chinatown.
Oh, yeah.
With that innovative screenplay format.
Mhm.
It's brilliant. It's a satire of how Asian Americans are portrayed in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And it really plays with those postmodern ideas of like fragmented identity,
Right.
challenging traditional narratives.
Speaking of challenging traditions, let's bring this conversation into the 21st century. We live in a digital age now.
We do.
How has technology influenced the world of novels?
So technology has had a huge impact,
Yeah.
both in how we access novels and in who gets to tell their stories.
Okay, I'm interested to hear about this.
Yeah, so ebooks and audiobooks have made reading more accessible than ever before.
Yeah, that's true.
You can literally carry an entire library in your pocket.
It's kind of crazy to think about that.
It is. It's amazing. And this has been particularly impactful for marginalized communities,
Okay.
including Asian American writers.
Okay.
The presentation highlights how digital platforms have opened up these new avenues for publication.
Interesting.
So authors can now connect directly with readers through self-publishing
Right.
or online literary magazines,
Yeah.
bypassing those traditional gatekeepers of the publishing industry.
That's amazing.
It is. It's really empowering.
Yeah, it's creating more opportunities for diverse voices to be heard,
Exactly.
which ultimately enriches the literary landscape for everyone.
I completely agree.
It's like technology is democratizing storytelling.
Yeah, it really is.
It's pretty cool.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
It's an exciting time to be a reader and a writer.
First,
The barriers to entry are lower,
Yeah,
and the possibilities for creative expression just seem limitless.
totally. It's kind of amazing. We started way back in 11th century Japan
I know, right?
talking about the tale of Genji,
Yeah.
and look where we are now.
It's been quite a journey.
I know. We've talked about how the novel traveled to America, how it's evolved over time.
Yeah.
Now we're talking about like the digital age.
The future of storytelling.
I know. It's just really incredible to see how this form of writing has like adapted and endured
It really has.
over centuries.
It speaks to the enduring power of storytelling, I think.
Definitely.
Like no matter the time period or the technology.
Yeah.
Humans have this just innate desire to connect through shared experiences.
Right.
And novels
Mhm.
with their ability to transport us to different worlds and lives offer just this really powerful way to do that.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of novels, what would you say are like the key takeaways for our listeners?
Ooh, that's a good question.
What do you hope they like walk away with?
I think the biggest takeaway for me is the power of novels
Yeah.
to cultivate empathy and understanding.
Okay, right.
When we step into the shoes of a character,
Yeah.
especially a character whose background or experiences are different from our own,
Right.
it expands our worldview.
It does.
It helps us see the world through new eyes.
And that makes me think about how we focused on Asian American authors.
Yeah.
You know, reading their work.
Yeah.
It not only introduces us to like these captivating stories,
Right.
but it also allows us to engage with these like really complex themes of immigration,
Exactly.
identity, cultural exchange.
It's so relevant,
I know.
especially in today's world where
Yeah.
understanding different cultures and perspectives is more important than ever.
Definitely. So for anyone listening,
Who's like eager to dive into this world of novels,
Yeah.
especially those by Asian American authors, what advice would you give them? Where should they start?
I would say be open to exploring authors and stories that might feel unfamiliar at first.
Okay.
Don't be afraid to step outside your comfort zone.
I love that.
There's a wealth of incredible novels out there just waiting to be discovered,
Yeah,
each offering a unique window into the human experience.
that's so true.
You might discover a new favorite author,
Yeah.
gain a fresh perspective, or even see the world in a whole new light.
I love that. Be open to the unfamiliar.
Yes.
That's perfect.
That's a good takeaway.
I know. Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive
Of course.
into the world of novels.
Yeah, it's been so fun.
We hope you enjoyed exploring this fascinating topic with us.
Definitely.
And we'll see you next time.
Happy reading, everyone.